Okay, so this is part two. We didn't plan it that way. Due to technical reasons, we have to do part two right now. And this is the best stock tip you will ever receive. So thank you all for coming today. It's been an interesting week. I hope that all of you are having a very good week as well. So, again, this is the best stock tip you will ever receive, part two. And about the time things stopped last time, I was throwing a bunch of acronyms at you. And so go ahead and go back to the other video, which will be edited and reposted for part one. The SPX, which is the S&P 500, has a thing called an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund. So this is an instrument set up like a stock. And all of the stocks that make up the S&P 500 are inside of that ETF. So as I said before, if you own one share of this ETF, you own a little bit of all of the companies of the SPX or the S&P 500. The symbol for this stock is SPY, and we often call that the spiders, because it's the Standard & Poor's direct depository receipts something, and it's SPDR. So people call this the spider. So if you ever hear me talking about the spiders, the SPY, the SPX, well, let me back that up. The spiders or the SPY, I'm talking about the same thing. And now the SPX is the index. Now that's the same thing too, but there are things that you can trade and invest in that are connected to the SPX, but I'm not covering that right now. I'm just covering the SPY. Okay, I haven't gotten any messages here, so I'm going to continue. The SPY, the stock that's attached to the S&P 500, it has become the most heavily traded stock in existence. If you look at the volume leaders every day, which I do, and then if you take an average of that over 1 month, 3 months, 9 months, pretty much all the time, the SPY is going to come in a distant first. It's going to be way ahead of even the most heavily traded stocks. Now, there are times on any particular days or even a period of time when there might be other stocks that outperform, but the SPY is usually number one and way number one. Now, why is that important to us? The interesting thing about the stock market is you've heard of getting in on the ground floor and get in early or get in before everybody else knows about this. It's kind of the opposite when it comes to the stock market. Having a lot of people involved in what we do and having a lot of volume is a very good thing. And even there's some real advantages to that. And I won't go into a lot of detail about that today, but just know that there are 60, 70, 80 million shares of this stock trades pretty much every day. And so it is very heavily traded. And that's a very good thing. That helps us. It just means that we can get in and we can get out quickly. And I'll talk a little bit about that. So since the average volume is so high, this allows for excellent liquidity. Liquidity is the ability to get into something fast and then get out of that fast if you want to. So it doesn't take a long time for what we want to do to happen. Because when we make a decision, we want that decision to be executed right now, whether to get in or to get out. So liquidity allows for numerous strategies to be used. You can just buy this at one price hoping that it will go up and then you sell it at another price, but we're not just limited to that. There are all kinds of crazy things that we can do using the SPY. And some of these are going to be really new to you and way outside the box as far as what you generally think of when you think of the stock market and investing in the stock market. So just to give you a real overview, I have a 2-day class that I teach just on strategies, the things that we can do just with the SPX or the SPY. So I'm just going to go over a real high level generalization of what we're capable of doing right now. Okay, I'm just checking here. Okay, looks like everything is still fine. So if you're very conservative, which means you don't like a lot of risk, you don't want to really be a nervous wreck over your investments or over what's happening in the stock market, the SPY is a very good tool for you. If you like to be really risky and on the cutting edge, and you like that excitement and that thrill, and you really want to get in there and follow things and do all kinds of interesting things, the SPY is for you. Okay, so you can be very conservative with this. You don't eliminate all risk, but you can pretty much make most of it to almost all of it go away. And in some cases, you can even make all of it go away. Or you can be really, really on the cutting edge of excitement and try some things that you really have to watch closely, but give you a chance at getting some really nice returns. But you have to be careful because you have to know what you're doing. And then anywhere in between, think of risk versus reward. If you want a really high reward, you're usually going to have to take more risk. And if you don't take that risk, yes, it's not as risky, but your return or what you make as a profit is not going to be as much. So this is part of what we need to think about is, do we want to focus on returns or do we want to focus on risk? And I have a lot of material that I teach just to help you with that as well. So this can be tailored to multiple time frames. Now, most of you, I've been using the term investor, and I just want to take a second and define that, because there are really, from our point of view, there are really two labels or two ways that you're called a participant in the stock market. Number one is if you hold an investment for longer than 1 year, you are an investor. And the stock market looks at it that way. The IRS looks at it that way. I look at it that way. That's you're investing at that point. And then if you hold something for less than 1 year, it might be for a few hours, or which I would highly recommend against. But if you hold something just for maybe a few days, a few weeks, or a few months, that now you're called a trader. Okay, so there's a trader less than 1 year, and then over 1 year is an investor. There are different strategies that you can implement. There are short-term strategies, and then intermediate-term strategies, and long-term strategies, and you can implement all of these using the SPY. Now, short-term, my definition, and this is my definition, it may be different than what you might read in a book or hear from somebody else, but short-term is days to weeks. That's a short-term trader at that point. Then intermediate term is also a trader, because that is weeks to months that you are in a position. So you're still a trader at that point. And then long term is generally months to years when you're holding on to that investment. Now, if it's less than a year, that's a trade. If it's longer than a year, that will be an investment for you. And you can implement any of these. You have to figure out what is best for you and then go with that. The whole program that I teach, we implement all three. We have long-term positions or investments, we have intermediate-term investments, and then there are short-term trades that we do as well. And you can intermingle them. You can have some that are short term, some that are long term, and intermediate term. You can have all those going at the same time. So that's one of the nice things about the flexibility in the SPY. Then we can also use it to take advantage of current market conditions. And this is where everybody goes, "Wah." Okay, we understand buy low, sell high. But do you know that we can also sell high and buy low? Yeah, we can. That makes no sense, I know, but I explained that in the classes that I offer. Just think of it this way. If we buy low and sell high, we're hoping that the market will go up. If we sell high and buy low, we hope that the market is going down. And then here's the interesting thing, and it took me years to find this. What happens when the market goes sideways? Ever since about October, really since October and into the election, the market, it's been going up a little bit, and it has a general overall uptrend, but we really have been going sideways. And we're going sideways right now as I record this. Well, if you want the market to really go up or down, what do? If you're a trend trader, okay, or a trend investor, you don't do anything during those periods of time. So I've been able to uncover, first of all, how to measure this to know if we're sideways or trending, and then strategies that you can take advantage of a sideways market. So we have the ability to take advantage of things when the market goes up. We can take advantage when the market goes down, and we can take advantage of a sideways market. We just need to know when to do the right thing. So, and this can be varied, these different strategies. What are you trying to do? Why, when we said the stock market is important to everybody, why? Okay, well, for us and the classes that I teach, what are you trying to do? If you decide, I want to get involved in the stock market, why? Well, the first desire that we usually think of is for capital gains. This is where wealth is created. This is long-term appreciation. This is when you have a program that you're setting aside money now so that in the future you hope to have more of it. And those are capital gains, whether they're short-term capital gains, less than a year, or long-term capital gains, which are a year or longer. And then protection. Do you know that there's a way that we can insure our investments in the SPY, where if it goes in the direction that we want it to go, we win. But if it goes in the direction that we don't want it to go, let's say we buy low and sell high. Well, let's say we buy low and then it goes even lower. We can use instruments that will replace what we lost. It's insurance. So we get the benefit when we're right and we break even when we're wrong. And that's pretty cool, because one of the biggest fears that people have when it comes to the stock market is they're afraid of losing. There's a fear of losing what they already have. Also, maybe you do have some investments, whether they're short-term, intermediate-term, or long-term, or a 401k or something, a retirement plan, and we hit a really difficult time where the market really shifts and starts to go down. You can use the SPY to put insurance even on your retirement account or any individual accounts, or if you have an IRA or a Roth IRA. You can use all of these techniques inside of any kind of investment vehicle that you're using. So we can use it for protection. And right now, this is a big focus. As I record this in early 2021, the market's hitting all-time highs. But there's not a lot of logic as to why. And one of the future workshops that I'm going to do, we'll talk a little bit more about that. there's a real case to be said that the market should be going down right now. When you shut down half of America and basically bring the economy to a halt, but yet the stock market's going up, there's something weird. There's something that we don't really see going on, because the stock market should be going down, but it's not. But at some point, it's part of the cycles. It's part of what happens. Markets need to go down to clear themselves out, to get rid of a lot of the what we call dumb money, and then get down to a point where we can then start our way up again. And so protection is what I'm focusing on right now. And this is just an opinion, but it's an educated opinion. At some point in the near future, my personal opinion is that we're going to have some difficult times with the change in administration, with a lot of the laws that will be changing. The whole economy is changing in America. The economy is changing in the world right now. It's a new norm. There's a thing called the Big Reset that's trying to be put into play. That's going to have a real impact on the stock market, and it could have a negative impact on the market. We don't know for sure, but the thing is, we can set this up. But the thing about protection, and I'll say this many times, is you need to prepare ahead of time for protection. If you try to buy house insurance when your house is on fire, you're not going to get any. Or if you try to get auto insurance after an accident, good luck with that, okay? So you need to have the insurance beforehand, or like health insurance, before you get sick. Well, the same thing is true with this. You need to have that insurance in play before the bad things start to happen, so then you can just sit back and take advantage of that, okay? Then another thing is income. We have the ability with the SPY to generate income. I used to do this for a living. I supported myself by doing this. And there are ways that you can make income every year. You can make income every quarter. You can make income every month. And you can make income, believe it or not, every week as well. And sometimes even more than twice a week, or more than once a week, I'm sorry. You can make it a couple of times a week. So there are these opportunities available too. And some of this can be a good living for people. You can work from home, which everybody is now anyway, but you have all of the tools that you need, and you can generate an income for yourself using the SPY. And then you can get from very simple strategies, and I would stick with what you understand. That's the main thing. There are lots of different strategies. Some of these are very simple. Well, of course, everything is complicated when it's new. Okay, but as you learn more things, you can then start to explore more complicated strategies. And I'm just checking just to see if I'm getting any kind of feedback here. Okay. Everything seems fine. So you can become very complicated if you want to. Now, to me, the complicated strategy, there are strategies beyond what even I do. But right now, if I was to throw those at you, you'd be like, because it just start with the simple and then get more complicated. So, but these things have to be learned over a period of time. So it's a one-size-fits-all type of an investment. It's the only thing that I really focus on now. So the SPX has something for everyone. Each individual investor or trader can develop a strategy that works best for you. That's the thing, is you can tailor this to your personality. You can tailor this to where you're at in life right now. A person who's in their 20s and single can do things differently than somebody who's just a few years from retirement, or somebody who's in retirement, Or if you're more in the middle part where you have a family that you're raising children and maybe you work or both you and your spouse work, you would invest or trade differently during that period of your life than you would when you're younger or than when you're older. You can develop a strategy for where you are at right now. Then it allows for flexibility. We can do lots of different things. We can take advantage of lots of different situations. Then you can implement multiple strategies at the same time. And I mentioned that before. There can be short-term, intermediate-term, and long-term strategies all going at the same time. Some strategies could benefit if the market goes up. Well, at the same time, maybe a long-term strategy that you have, that you're hoping that things go up. But let's say we hit some bumps for a short-term period of time, and you could take advantage of when things go down while still keeping your longer-term investment in place. So you can do lots of different things. Just to let you know, there are more opportunities with the SPY or with the SPX and the SPY than any of us will ever have the opportunity to take advantage of. Almost every day, there's something that we can do. So that's why I say this is the best stock. You don't need to go search for the next Microsoft or the next Google or the next Apple. We have everything we need right here. So we don't have to spend all that time looking for the latest, greatest stock. We've got the greatest stock. Now we can tailor that to ourselves, take advantage of it, and then start to implement different strategies at the right time, taking advantage of different market conditions. All at the same time. So no stock selection is needed because the SPX index is maintained with quality stocks on our behalf. If you remember back to the first part of this lesson where I talk about the criteria of the SPX, that's built-in quality right there. Now, it doesn't remove all of the risk. Enron was in the S&P 500, and they were able to stay in the S&P 500 for a while until it finally came to light the problems that were happening at Enron, and then they were kicked out. So it doesn't mean that it's always going to be rainbows and lollipops, okay? But it does take a lot of the risk out and puts a lot of the quality into our investment. Then new instruments that are directly tied to the SPX are being developed continuously. When I talked about you can make weekly income, 15 years ago, actually about 10 years ago, that was not even possible. This weekly opportunity has just been around the last maybe 10 to 15 years or so. And then the opportunity to make income multiple times each week, that's pretty new as well. And there's some new things being developed right now that I might introduce as part of what I teach in the future. But I want to test them first, and I want to understand them myself before I start teaching them to other people. So, and when I first started this program in the late 90s to early 2000s, the only thing I had available to me were mutual funds. The SPY existed, but it wasn't really popular yet. And I didn't really know much about it at that time. And then I looked at it and studied it and tested it over a period of time. And I went, wow, this is pretty cool. I'm going to stop using SPX mutual funds, and I'm going to jump over and use the SPY instead, because I have a broader universe of opportunities that I can take advantage of. Okay, so the big thing is knowing what to do and then when to do it. Each day, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about how I evaluate things. So each day, week, and month, in addition to watching, listening, and reading about what is happening, I'm always in tune with what's going on, no matter where I'm at, whether I'm in the US, whether I'm in another country. I always keep up with what's going on. But when I look at things at the end of each trading day, I look at over at least 300 points of data that I look at. And pretty much all of those points of data are about the S&P 500. You don't have that with stocks. You have a few things you can look at with Microsoft or with Google or Apple. There's a few things you can check out, but there's certainly not over 300. We get a lot of information generated to us that you don't get with individual stocks. So we can study this, we can analyze it, we can really dig in and look under the hood, so to speak, and really get an idea of what's happening. So these data points are called charts. Now, I have a whole class that I teach on this called technical analysis, and that is looking at charts. And I have over 300 charts that I look at every day, each day. And I have them set up in kind of a scroll, so it doesn't really take me that long. And I have a few charts that are more important that I focus in on pretty heavily, and then other charts that I may not look at all that closely, but I'm looking at all these different points of information to see what's the market telling us. And then we can act accordingly once we figure out what's happening. So these charts tell me either directly or indirectly. Now, what I mean by indirectly is I'm not just looking at the stock market. I look at the bond market, I look at gold, I look at oil, I look at the US dollar, I look at what's happening in Germany, what's happening even in China. They're having a little bit of an impact on the US market these days. I look at what's happening in Japan. I look at all of these things, so that would be more indirectly. But then there are charts that I also look at that are directly attached to the SPX. And then I take all of that information, and then we're able to come to a pretty good understanding of what do we think is going to happen tomorrow? What do we think is going to happen next week, or this week or next week? What do you think is going to happen between now and the end of the month, or even between now and the end of the year? Now, the further out we get as far as time, it's like the weather. It's really easy. No, I shouldn't say that. It's easier to predict the weather today about what the weather will be tomorrow than it is today to predict what the weather will be like next week. So the further out you get, the more adjustments that we might have to make to that prediction or to that forecast, so to speak. But we can get a really good idea of what's happening. There's a lot of information that we can use to really keep us in the groove as to the feel. The groove, you like that, Darren? Yeah, that's when you're making music, when you're in the groove. We can get in the groove with the kinds of analysis that I do and that I teach about. Okay, this is a skill that I have spent over 25 years developing, and I'm still developing it. As I record this, I'm reading a couple of books right now that are just blowing me away. They're new things. And I'm always reading articles. I'm always online. I'm always going to webinars. I've got a whole list of ideas of things that I'm constantly trying. And it never stops. That's the cool thing about this. I like that. And then I continue to develop that skill every day. And I've actually been able to get to the point where I can anticipate things happening before they happen. And believe me, that took a long time to develop that skill. And what I do as part of my classes is I teach you that skill. Now, it's not going to come overnight. It's not going to be something that's necessarily easy all the time, but it is a skill that you can learn. And then you couple that with the mental things, because the stock market can really screw with your brain, okay? And if you can get your brain and your emotions under control and then combine that with some knowledge and information, man, you're a powerhouse at that point. And there's all kinds of great things that you can do, at least from a stock market perspective. So teaching others to develop the skill for themselves, and that's what I do. I don't tell people what to do. I teach people how to do it for themselves. It's the old adage, you give a man a fish, you fed him for a day. If you teach him how to fish, you fed him for the rest of his life. Now, this is not a skill that you'll be able to just get spending a weekend. It takes some time. There's some maturity in this. It's like a lot of things. Being a musician, Darren, we didn't become drummers overnight. There's a lot of hours we spent in a room all by ourselves practicing. And there's other areas that we've had to grow in over a period of time. It just doesn't happen really, really fast. So my goal is to teach people how to do this for yourself. Now, I'll work with you and I'll be your guide, but the idea is for me to help you be the hero in your story. And this has become my calling. And I've known this calling for a long time, probably since about 1994. I knew I was called to do this. Now, here it is, 2021. Yeah, okay, there's a little bit of a lag. Just think of Abraham, just think of Moses, okay? A little bit of lag from the time that this calling was first really made known to me. It was July 4th, 1994, when I knew that this is what I was supposed to do for other people. Well, if I'm going to teach a skill to other people, I better learn that skill first. So that's what I've spent a lot of this last, however many years that is, 25 years or so, 26, 27 now, years developing, so that the more I've been able to learn, the better I can be as a guide for you. And this is my true passion. This is what I really enjoy. And I have a whole program that's set up that can help people to do that. So I have a question for you, and I'm looking at the clock. I love these 15 to 20 minute broadcasts that go on for an hour. Aren't they great? Okay, can I help you develop this skill? That's a question that only you can answer. That's a question that we may need to answer together. But this is a skill, whether you're a long-term investor, an intermediate-term investor, or a short-term trader. Can I help you develop this? Your answer may be no. I don't have the time. This doesn't really interest me. I have other things I would rather do. Okay, fine. Or if your answer is yes, then I would like to come alongside and build a team with you and help you to do this. Now, if you want to learn this skill, this is going to require time. And there's a workshop that I'm going to talk again about that I would really recommend that all of you go watch. I recorded it last summer, and I don't talk just about the stock market. I talk about music, I talk about sports, I talk about being a professional, and I have some stock market things that I throw in there. But it's going to take some time. You're taking time out of your day right now to watch this broadcast. Those of you that are watching the recording, you're taking time to watch it. Okay? This is time that you won't get back. So if you want to develop this skill, it's going to take some time. It's also going to take some dedication. If you get all rah-rah about this for just a week or two and then it kind of dies away because you're dealing with it on an emotional level, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. This is something that you're going to have to dedicate yourself to, even if you're a long-term investor. Okay? And we're taught, okay, in the teachings of Jesus that we're given something and he's expecting us to do something with that. And the one person that did the safe thing and just hid it under a mattress, so to speak, that's the one that he didn't really have much good to say about. It was the other ones that went out and tried to do something that seemed to really be pleasing. Okay, and that's what I'm asking you is, do you want to take this and then use it to learn this skill, the time and dedication that you'll need to develop it, because it's not going to happen overnight. And then a commitment. Now, there are different things that I teach depending on what you want to do, but there are times when you're going to have to do some reading. There are times when you're going to need to watch some videos. There are times that you'd rather be doing something else, but you need to do this in order to have the reward of being successful in this. So there's a real commitment involved to it as well. Now you can tailor that, because even the short-term program folks, 20 minutes a day, maybe. Okay, people that are a little longer term, maybe 30 to 45 minutes to an hour a week. Okay, I'm not talking about a lot of time, but at first it will require more time because you're learning. And then you have to take what you're learning and actually transfer that over into a skill. And that's the part that's going to take the dedication and some time and a real commitment. And then sacrifice. Yeah, you could be watching the Seahawks. Well, not anymore because they're now finished, but we could be watching a movie. Now, I'm not saying any of those things are bad. We need time to do those things. But there may be a time when you need to get up a little early or stay up a little late, because we need to develop this skill and work this skill the best we can. So usually the sacrifice is going to be time and energy. And then as we go through other lessons, keep asking that question. Now this is supposed to be lesson number 2. It turned out to be lesson number 3. And I'm just checking for messages because I haven't heard anything. Okay, everything seems to be okay. Unless I'm totally disconnected from the whole world right now. But keep asking that question, because you can't answer that right now. You need to be exposed to more of what I teach and what I'm talking about before you can really answer that question. You may start off with an answer, but then you'll need to adjust that answer later. So, as an added bonus, and this is a slide that I had up at the first lesson, please click on the link right below this video to watch my free workshop that provides insight that sometimes is overlooked. And it's just philosophies that I've developed over life and things that I think, mindsets and ways to think about things, questions to ask that can either things that have been overlooked or that can entice you to ask questions and then maybe to consider some new alternatives. It's just a think piece, so to speak. So feel free to watch that video. It's free. And even at the end, I'm not trying to sell you anything. It's just a free video that I put out there. But I recorded it a few months ago, and just watch it and see what you think of that. I would like lots of feedback, just like with this broadcast. Once it gets posted to YouTube, please come watch this again and give me lots of comments. Okay, and I'll get to that here in just a second. So the free workshop it's less than an hour. It's like 54 minutes or so. But feel free to watch that. And it's done kind of about the same format that I'm using now, but it's not live. I actually pre-recorded that. So another thing is, let's talk. Okay, you've seen this slide before, those of you that have been to this. My email, you can email me anytime. I've received emails from some of you already, and I'm pretty sure I responded to everybody. But john@spxinvesting.com. Or let's have an audio or video call. Zoom, Skype, Messenger. Feel free to contact me and let's set up a time to chat. And I don't put a time limit on that. We can talk using video. We can just talk by voice. We can use Zoom. Whatever tool works best for you. Right now, because of my current situation, I don't have access to WhatsApp or Viber. And that'll change probably in the future, but the big ones for me are Skype, Zoom, and Messenger right now. And then the public Facebook group. Now, most of you who are watching this live, you're already a member of that group. Invite your friends. It's a public group. Anybody can join. And so far, I'm really the one that's posting most of the information. But if you have feedback, if there's something that you want to share, if you feel you want to share or ask something in a more private manner, send me a private message or send me an email. If you want to ask something that you don't mind other people saying, post it in our Facebook discussion group, and we can talk about it that way. So, and then as this group gets going, I'm sending out invitations, but somebody can also request an invitation as well. It's a public group, okay? There are other groups that I have that are private, but this one is public. So I want to thank you. Here's my student again. Uh-oh, I got a message. Is that a good thing? Oh, we have some questions. Okay, let me look at what's going on. I appreciate everybody taking the time to watch this. Okay, Dana, yeah, you and Darren are going to rewatch the other video. Yeah, it was a whole week ago. It was supposed to be, one day, then the next day, blah, blah, blah. It just didn't work out that way. Yes, okay. And ask, and I have this question, Dana, and I have a general idea of what I'm going to talk about through these broadcasts, but if there's a particular area that you want me to cover, I'll do it. You talk about it, the time and how we start. Yes, that maybe closer to the end of these broadcasts, I might talk about, okay, how do you get started? What do you do? I have a whole answer to give you for that. Okay, but it's going to take some time and some real thought. Okay, and then if desired, please click like or dislike below this video. Leave any comments that either you liked it, you didn't like it. Again, whatever, fine. I really welcome any and all comments. And then also consider subscribing to this channel, this YouTube channel, and clicking on the bell so that you are notified when new videos are posted. And then the anticipation is, and I already made a mistake on here. Okay, because of all these changes, the next broadcast for lesson 4 should be, it should be Tuesday evening, January whatever that is, the 12th. Did I forget to write Tuesday on there instead of Monday? At 7 p.m. So I anticipate as of right now doing another broadcast 23 hours from now. If that, stick to the Facebook group or private messages, and I'll keep everybody in the loop as to what's going on. Okay, before we end this, are there any final questions that anybody has? Well, of course you're a prodigy, Darren. We all know that. Yes. Okay. Yeah. You're one of the finest drummers I've ever heard. So, did you play other instruments too? Because, Eddie Van Halen was not only a really good guitar player, he was also a child prodigy on the piano as well. Okay, we're with the lag time, it's kind of hard for us to have much of a back and forth conversation. Okay, so that concludes this particular broadcast. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do next. Let me go back to full screen with this. Okay, and when it came to the drums. Okay, well, yeah, you are a fine drummer, my friend. I love to listen to you play. Okay, if there are no other questions, and if you think of something later, I'm available. So I want to thank everybody for attending this, and I'll look forward to seeing you again for the next broadcast tomorrow evening. So God bless and take care, and have a good, safe night. Bye-bye.